Peace, peace, peace. Mic check, mic check. Make sure I got a mic check out there. Check this other page real quick. Give me a minute, y'all. Just doing a video in response to the brother Tuntum, Tuntum, Gyata on Facebook. Basically, it's entitled "Is God a Hater?" Response video to that. So let me check to see if I got proper sound real quick. Proper sound. Make sure I got proper sound real quick. Give me a minute so I can check with my page and make sure everything good. Everything good. Let's see. Yeah, I know I always got to get this sound together before I get in, go in. Mute this real quick. I know I always got to get this. Yeah, so it's looking like my sound is right. Mute this real quick. I know I always got to get this. Yeah, so it's looking like my sound is right. Mute this real quick. I know I always got to get this. All right, cool. Okay. Now, in response to a brother, with all due respect, named Tuntum, or Tuntum on Facebook, right? He posed the question: Is God a hater? And so I listened to him. The brother is very intelligent, but I think that we definitely got to get the entirety of what this book is saying before we can actually make a judgmental stance on it. And I think that the brother probably didn't take time to really examine that book correctly, come to a conclusion, um, with understanding. You know, when you're dealing with people that deals with the biblical theology, you know, that's our job. We're apologetics, whether if you black or white, whatever color you is, we're apologetics. So we definitely get off into the text and give some understanding of it, and we this text to the fullest. So when you read Genesis chapter 3, right, is um, one of the most controversial. Getting like a little head noise here. Let me make sure I'm still putting out correctly. Hold on, y'all. Make sure I'm correct. Yeah, so it's looking like my sound is right. I think that we definitely got to get the entirety of what this book is saying before we can actually, whatever color you is, make sure I'm still putting out correct. All right. I don't know what that sound is. Maybe somebody. Yeah. So, anyways, when you are dealing with this book, you have to examine it to its entirety. And Genesis chapter 3 is one of the most controversial chapters that there is, yet one of the most strategic chapters that we have in the Bible. Like I say, if you give me Genesis chapter 3 on to 10, or Genesis chapter 3 on to 11, those chapters are so pivotal within the Bible, you will have to question yourself if you don't understand what's basically going on here. Now, so let's deal with this. Let's open it up and look at it. Genesis 3:3, because the brother read from Genesis 3:3. It says, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die, right? That's what he said, right? Now, let's examine this. When you read the biblical theology, what's being revealed here before Genesis chapter 3 is that God has set man up, and man is in his image and in his likeness, and he has set man up with a favorable beginning. Favorable beginning. I mean that man have the American dream, so to speak. In other words, what man would desire at a certain age, he's starting off good. And it was so good that even God said it was good, right? In other words, he had dominion, he had a homeland, which was a extension of heaven. What is heaven? Heaven is a lofty place. So he had a extension of heaven, and he had everything that you can imagine, plus in naming the animals. Plus, he was put in a garden which yielded every fruit, right, of every tree properly in his time, right? So he had all these things. He had what you call the American dream. That's what we would call it, right? The finer things of life, right? And God said it was good. And Adam knew what good was, is because he is the very one who defines what everything is. He defines what was brought to him. This is this, and he named that. So he knows what grammar is. He knows what language is, because he's that, right? Now, God gave him a choice, as he gave all creatures or beings a choice, so to speak. And that choice was choose life or death. That's bottom line, life or death, right? Now, what I want y'all to examine is that he gave him the tree of life, and he gave him the tree of death, right? Testing him to see would he walk in his ways, in the way that he was instructed to walk. Now, there's some things here that need to be brought out so we can get some clarity and get some understanding here. For instance, let's look up the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Let's look up what evil means in the Hebrew. Evil is H7451, right? And it means ra, right? And it's an adjective. It means bad, evil, disagreeable, unpleasant, misery, unhappiness, pain, evil, displeasing, of worse than, sad, hurtful, unkind, disposition, right? Distress, misery, injury, calamity, wrong, right? So we see that mischief, right? All of these things that we see, right? He is told not to basically partake of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, because that Ra is what will come into his paradigm, into his physical world, which was a favorable beginning. In other words, he was given good things. But if he partook of this tree of knowledge and good and evil, then what will come into his paradigm was Ra, right? He will experience these things. He will experience evil. Now, let's look at it overall. So, as we can see, he says, But of the fruit of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, or the tree, or the fruit which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. So God is telling him, look, if you touch of this tree, what I just explained to you about Ra, misery will come on you, calamity, displeasure, misfortune, all of these things will come on you. Now, why is God telling him this? Because in life, when you don't follow instructions, those very same things that I just named out come on you. If I tell my son, I say, look, hey son, don't do this. And I'm telling him for a reason, and he goes and he do it. And he has dispositioned himself and positioned himself basically in an area to be bombed on with misery, calamity, distress. And not only that, the actions that he have done can also cause those around him to be harmed, because actions that you do can cause others to be harmed as well as yourself. And we know that. We've been in these streets, right? Or for those that have not been in these streets, you don't have to be in these streets. That's just life. If you're doing something and it's not positive, right, you can cause other people to be harmed by your actions as well as yourself. So this is common sense, right? Peace to you, Sister Cherry. I see you out there, right? So let's look at this and let's examine this. Let's look at this, right? So jumping over, and I know people are at work right now, but you know, you'll get a chance to listen to this when you get off work. It says, and the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. Now, so it is clear, it's very clear now, then we look at this text, that God, by his foreknowledge, is looking and telling him, look, bro, if you touch this tree, right, this tree is going to cause this calamity, this misery, and you're going to invite this very lifestyle or this duality of ups and downs within your paradigm. Why do it when you got already a favorable beginning, the American dream, so to speak, right? Why do it? So let's look at the bigger picture here, because the brother said, is God a hater? Now let's look and see, is God a hater, or is there a hater in the midst of Adam and Eve in God? Let's look at that. Now we have the serpent, right? Now God has given every individual, from angels to human beings, a choice. But it seems to us that we have an enemy, right? The Bible says that the devil, or Satan, abode not in the truth. He was a liar from the beginning. In other words, he abode not in the truth. In other words, he was in the truth, but he abode not in the truth. Because God, by his foreknowledge, understood that man possibly would basically have a mindset to turn against him because of their choice, right? But he has already worked out every possibility before man was even fashioned, or any individual that had choice. So if they took those ways and chose to go their own route, he has already worked out what should happen to them when they do so. This is simple, right? So check this out. He says, watch what he says. Watch what he tells them. We know that there is an enemy, first off, due to the fact of the type of wording that's there, the Hebrew that's there, right? It says, and the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. This is, what is this? This is Genesis 2 and 15. And I wanted to bring this out. I should have brought this out first, but when it says to keep it, right? It says to keep it. That word is H8104, and it means shamar. To keep, guard, observe, give heed. To keep, have charge, right? To properly to hedge, that is to guard, generally to protect, attend, beware, be circumspect, take heed to thyself, keep, mark, look, narrowly, observe, preserve, regard, reserve, save self, sure, lay wait for, watch. So all of these are basically implications that there is an enemy. And if there is an enemy, there's going to be a possible intrusion. Right? So it's simple. It is giving him a warning to take heed, to protect, to keep what's his, because there is an intruder, basically, as we see in the text. It's simple. It's simple. The Bible in the Hebrew is explaining this for us, letting us know that Adam, with defined language, he knew what God was telling him. Keep this, protect this, beware, watch. Looking at possibilities of intrusion, or someone is going to intrude. So he's giving a warning of what could happen, basically, right? So let's continue on. Jump back over. Jump back over. Now, the tree of life was in the midst of them, as well as the tree of knowledge and good and evil. It was there, right? So when the tree of knowledge is there, the tree of life is there, they had to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil before they ate from the tree of life. Why? Because what is the tree of life? The tree of life is a preserver or a supplement or information to cause the physical body to live eternally. The physical body. Why? Understood in man that he was not just a physical being, but he consisted of, guess what? A spiritual being. So therefore, when I say that ye shall surely die, what is death? Death is separation from the source. But there's 3 stages of death, right? There's what you call eternal death, which means eternal separation from God. That's what it means. And eternal separation means to be separated from what you was made to do, what you was created to do, naturally, right? So you're separated from the source, and as a result, you have what you call the second stage of death, right? And the second stage of death is what you call spiritual death, because now that you're cut from the source, now there's spiritual death. And what is spiritual death? Is when your spirit man cannot comprehend the things of God, the things of the source of the Most High God. You can't comprehend. You don't know his lingo or what he's trying to say or his ways due to the fact of you've been disconnected from the source, right? So you what you call degenerating. You're degenerating now. And this is what we call spiritual death. One that is dead in sins and in trespasses because he can't discern what God is saying to him to follow God's instructions because he is cut from the very source. He is cut from his purpose because he has sinned against God, right? Now, the third, as a result of the first, of being separated from the source, and then spiritually being disconnected, not being able to communicate or understand him or comprehend his things that he's speaking unto you, is physical death. Physical death or physical separation from God. or physical separation from your spirit man or from the body. Physical separation is basically that you would die physically, basically, and be buried and go back to the dust of the earth. Those things are something that is supernatural. You was not meant to die, but you was meant for life. And you was created with life. And you was given the opportunity to continue life. And you still have the opportunity after you basically messed up. Now, that's what death is. Now that I explained death, right? God said you will surely die. So in that day, did Adam die? Yes, Adam died. Adam was cut from the source. 1. 2, right? Adam was spiritually dead. As Christ said himself, let the dead bury the dead, right? Or when he says you must be born again. What? Born from death, raised again in newness of mind and spirit, right? So there's dead man walking out here, bottom line. Dead man is walking out here, right? So, okay, now that is taken care of, we see that physical death plays a role. Because now that you cannot comprehend the things of God and that you have been cut away from the source, now physical death plays a role. So there's a cause of effect due to the fact of not following proper instructions. And this is life. Whenever you don't follow instructions, you endanger those that's within you or those that is around you. Why? Because you cause your lineage to be cut off, this within you, or your progeny to be cut off, this within you. Or if you have kids already, you cause those this around you to be exposed to such circumstances because you're not following directions. This is bottom line. You can't escape this. This is life. This is what you call the law of reaping and sowing, right? So be careful what you do, because not only can it harm you, but it can cause an effect to cause circumstances to happen to those that are around you, to put them in circumstances that's not good, right? Or position them in those things. So as we see, we explain what death is, right? Let's continue on. Let's move on. Now, the question was, is God a hater? I just explained to y'all what God gave them in the first place. Now, the question would be for me to the brother, right? Why is it that God is considered a hater when he has given them a favorable beginning, right? And he told them one thing not to do, and they couldn't even follow instructions. Now, we will ask the question and say, well, why did he put it there? Well, no, that shouldn't be the question. The question should be is, why didn't this brother just follow instructions? If God has given you all that is good and has given you dominion over everything of the works of his hands, why did not he listen? See, that's the question we need to start asking, brothers and sisters. Why didn't you follow instructions? Let's not put the blame on God. Let's put the blame on, hey, brother, you could have just followed instructions. And that's something when we become a self-conscious person from a state of being aware of God and his instructions, from leaving a God consciousness into a self-consciousness perspective, as what happened in the Bible, we see that man become aware of self. And when he become aware of self, he only wants to please self. And these are the appetites of the flesh, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life, and the lust of eyes. And this is what took place in the Garden of Eden. Man became aware of his embodiment and his surroundings and focused on self. So he sold himself fig trees or aprons to cover self, or to cover his shame or his sin, to compensate for him not following instructions, trying to fix it now. Nah, buddy, ain't nothing popping like that. And what he tried to fix, he actually made worse. That's why every time we try to fix something in the medical field, it comes with side effects, and we actually create another problem because we don't have the remedy, right? And we have the manual, but we don't know how to use the manual to fix a remedy. I mean, to put forth a remedy or a calculation to cause the entirety of the problem to be consumed or to be fixed, basically. Now, right? This is simple. So we leave a state of being God consciousness. That's why I call myself G consciousness, because it means to be aware of God, of his instructions. From a self of God consciousness and his instructions to a state of self-consciousness. What is self-consciousness or self-conscious? Self-conscious means self-awareness, that you're so focused on self that what happens is you begin to cover self. Rather, if it's at the expense of another person's earnings. You got to have the Jordans. You got to have the change, the bling bling, the land. All of these things that you want to make self look good, to please the appetites of the flesh. So God knew that if man partook of this tree, and what is this tree? The tree of good and evil, which means evil, which is Radar, the knowledge of good and evil. It means ups and downs. So why would you want to invite ups and downs in your paradigm when you only knew good? You only knew good. That's all you knew. Now you invite Ra in. What is Ra? Calamity, misery, displeasure. All of these things. Look up the Hebrew. It's right there. It's telling you. So you invite this duality within your mindset. And the duality within your mindset is what causes you to go through the circumstances that you're going through now. Whereas you only seen good before and experienced good because God put you in a position that was good. The American dream, right? This is simple, y'all. It's nothing hard at all. We make it hard, right? So let's continue. Let's continue on. Okay. So we see that he's positioned in a position, right, that's favorable. Now he is position himself in another position that causes him to experience the good and the bad and have knowledge. And that word conscious or conscience is a moral faculty that's embedded in man that causes him to know what is good and what is evil. So now man has become consciousness, which means aware to what is good and evil, which is conscience, right? So he has become conscience now. So he knows the knowledge of good and evil. And this is an aspect of God, except God has not experienced or any way done any evil, but he has created calamity, right? He has created misery. So when you will sin against him, which sin means to miss the mark, or sin against his instructions, he will bring calamity on you. This is the law of sowing and reaping. So when God created man, he created evil just as well. Well, what do I mean by evil? Evil should not be implied as sin. What is sin? Sin means to miss the mark or to miss God from when he has instructed you to do something, right? So God did not create sin, but he created you to be obedient or to choose to be obedient. And if you will sin against him or miss the mark or do not follow his instructions, then he will bring what you call evil or Ra on you, which is calamity, right? So in this case, man actually brought calamity on himself by not following instructions. So this is simple, y'all. So if you don't follow instructions in life, even when you building something, you're going to run into some errors or some complications or things that might cause you to be dispositioned from where you're supposed to be at. That's bottom line. So when we look at it, we explain what death is. We explain also other aspects of death, which is separation overall, right? When you die, you are separated from your body, and also you are separated from your loved ones, your family, basically. So, excuse me, the tree, we explained what the tree was. The tree is a supplement or information, genetic code because food is information. What you eat is what you are. And food is information. And food is what causes one supplement or causes the body to live. That's why when Adam sinned, he cursed, the ground was cursed because of his sin. And when the ground was cursed, his diet was changed. And when your diet is changed, it causes you to get mutations upon the chromosomes due to your diet, and also due to climate, as that takes place after the flood just as well. So this is simple, y'all. So we dropping it, right? We giving y'all the understanding of this. So let's continue on. Let's continue on. And the Lord said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above every cattle, right? Let's jump down. He said, man has become one of us to know good and evil. In other words, God has not so made sin, but God has seen seen evil in rebels, basically. He has seen evil in rebels, so therefore he knows the knowledge of good and evil, and also from an aspect of knowing or seeing by his foreknowledge on how evil is displayed, and also what sin is displayed, and also because he's the creator of evil, as I explained when I said evil as calamity. In other words, he created a tool to use, or a mechanism that when you would sin against him, he would bring this tool on you or allow it to be brought on you. So let's continue on. It says, and the Lord God said, behold, the man is become one of us to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand from the tree of life and live forever. Right? In other words, what is he saying? Now that he's took it from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and he has this aspect, and he continues to, as we seen, to hide himself, to blame his wife, to blame the serpent for the actions that he put forth that was irresponsible and not following instructions, right? So now he continued more in evil. So therefore, the creator like, hey, look, why allow him to take of the tree of life and live eternally in the flesh, right? In a condition of sin, with a sinful nature. No, he didn't allow him to do that. He wouldn't allow him to do that. So what he did was he took of that tree, right? And when he took that tree is taken from him. And once man learned how to be responsible and take responsibility for his actions, and he becomes back born again and connected back to the source, he gives him the tree back in the book of Revelations, something that the brother, the title his title is God a hater, did not realize or did not tell y'all that God gives them back the tree when they take self-responsibility and connect themselves back unto the source and believe on him and follow his instructions. He gives them back that tree in Revelation chapter 22. So I just wanted to bring that out for the brothers that's listening in and sisters that's listening in, that you have to study these things and really get the understanding of these things before you start to bring these things out. And peace and blessings to the brother, but I just wanted to respond to that, and hopefully he get the entirety or the totality of what was said, when we break down this biblical theology, according to what we see in this book. And it's definitely wisdom within this book, whether you think it's figurative or literal, however you want to take it. The words of these books is the words from the divine counsel, which is through a triune God, the Godhead, right? So these words are words of God, and we take them as that. And with that being said, I just want to say peace and blessings. Hopefully I explained everything that the brother brought out. There is no haterism in God, but there was a hater which was Satan, and he hated on you to where he hated your position, and he caused you to lose that position so he can gain position and gain your position. So he did not impart into you any knowledge he really was capable of. He imparted into you basically a duality of ups and downs and calamity. So he caused you basically to the instructions of God. So this hater caused you to be dispositioned so he can gain your position. And with that being said, it's your brother G Consciousness, and I'm out. Peace.